games.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting going forward, ladies and gentlemen. We will be going straight into the start of Game 1 from what I've understood. Of course, this game will be played in full as it was played in Shanghai while we went to Game 3 for WE and OMG over in Xi'an. So EDG and LNG, kind of exciting. I even might think it might be Suzhou here because LNG, I know, are playing in their home arena these days. Of course, with COVID, things have been a bit back and forth, but we are getting back into home arenas. I've been told that we are going to Suzhou. So exciting stuff here is these are the comps for game number 1, Clement Chu. We are looking at a bit of 11.3, aren't we? So we'll talk about this going into game number 1 here of EDG and LNG. An exciting time ahead as, let's remember, EDG with this series win lock in playoffs at 100% with their magic number of 10, and LNG need every series they can get to make sure they guarantee playoffs and are not in threat of getting knocked out. We go into game 1 with high expectations of some cleaner games, I think, to be said.
Bro, EDG recently, man, they've been running into a rough patch. They've dropped against IG, and they've also dropped against RNG. Those were kind of the strong teams at the top of the table, but definitely not wins that they can sort of just glance over. So I think for them, we really want to see a better team fighting presence. They actually had great early games against both teams, but when it comes to the mid-late game, IG and RNG both out team fought them. So I want to see EDG right here with this sort of front to back composition and just having a more measured pace with their front line.
I know you were going to really go into the deep dive about how EDG have thrown away some of those leads, some of those team fights with, you know, lackluster engages or that separation between Meiko or Flandre and the engage. We can talk more about that as we get into this game, Clement. Of course, I want to go through the matchup a little bit here because we see for LNG, it's Kalista, which you were going to do a segment on as well, talking about how Light has been looking at things like Tristana. Viper's been vying away from it, but this time around we get something a little bit different with Light trying to set up for a 2v2.
It's really interesting about the bot lane matchups. We actually have a number of bot laners that just don't touch Tristana, and Viper is one of them. Has not played a single game of Tristana so far. In the meantime, Light has been known as the Tristana master. They play around with this, with his lane, with his pushing power to achieve a lot of topside sort of herald and lane trade plays. But this time around, we are going to see Light on the aggressive side of the matchup. This is one of the champions that can actually punish Xayah quite hard in the early game. You can chase onto her easily. You have just sort of like your orb walking just doesn't keep you in place, so you can continuously just shift forward onto the Xayah, and because you're so mobile, it's very hard for Blade Caller to actually land onto the Kalista. So we are having Light coming out with a very aggressive lane. I want to see if they can make this one work.
But Lwandy doesn't find the engage. Meiko does get the headbutt pulverized, but you can already see Light there with Halo Blades. Quick rend onto Meiko, and he'll be forced to use a pop to heal back up, plus his innate is sustain. As Jiejie is now hovering around the bottom side of the map, but look at where Tarzan is. He's always here. He's also here, rather, on the Olaf, but Scuttle Crab a little bit too late, as Jiejie will be the one to pick that up. Again, matches out. EDG do get the first scuttle of the game, but Tarzan spots out the enemy jungler and Clement. I want to talk more about this early game that we're in because LNG have drafted a bit of an early game composition here to get the snowball rolling in multiple lanes.
Yeah, LNG is full on early game this time around. Their top lane is Jayce versus Sion. That's a very well-known matchup. You can bully Sion out early just like he's doing right here.
Yeah.
But we have to remember in the late game then, you know, Sion is much better of a team fighter. And the same thing goes for the Zoe as well. So LNG are going for full priority, full pressure. This is very different from what we expected out of them and what we expected out of 11.5, honestly. We felt like with general resources diminishing coming out of the jungle, that meant that the game time was going to slow down and you were going to try and play for a more team fight. But this is not the LNG path. LNG are going with basically red deck wins. You take a lead at 15, you keep it going, or you just go home.
as EDG will be playing to delay this game out. You could already see the trades were great from Meiko, but Flandre punishes him as he walks up near the turret, and a bit too much damage taken. Meiko actually has to back away, but he'll be able to get the tier. Cull's still stacking there with the longsword also picked up. So as wave crashes into Flandre, things will even out a little bit in the top lane. We'll watch how Meiko tries to punish out this wave a little bit more. But I guess we should be talking about junglers here after we did a huge segment to start off the day, Clement. Tarzan will be trying to farm up. He has a bit of a lead. He's been able to reset as well. While Jiejie's reset too, he picked up the Oni and Boots of Lucidity. And for now, jungle's quite even. As actually the lanes in the bottom lane as well. Quite even for now too.
We do see a small lead coming out for Light, which is expected in this meta. A matchup, excuse me. And now it's LNG's turn to find something with mid-jungle priority. I think this is a great contrast to our previous series about what happens when Zoe gets to roam on the map. They have a lot of great engage in the bottom lane. Nautilus plus Kalista is one of the hardest engage combos you can possibly find. It's also pretty much unavoidable. You use Depth Charge, you go in Dredge Line, and honestly, if you get low, then Light can yank you out and throw you back in again. So there's a lot of different crowd control combinations in this bottom side that is almost unavoidable, and if you throw Zoe's potential impact into that lane, it's downright impossible for EDG to walk out of this lane without losing something. So I want to see that be the sort of focus here. We are seeing a smart play from EDG. They actually pretend that they're going to recall, wait for the enemy to recall, and then shut the wave. This is a kind of a neat move that we have seen EDG do quite often with Meiko. Just getting them a bit of a CS lead, a bit of a tempo lead, and forcing the enemy to lose some minions when they come back to lane.
Bit of tongue-in-cheek, you call it as well. And after all waves are cleared, this time around, the real resets will come through. Notice the control ward here that Scout going to walk over as Meiko's roaming as well. But with Tarzan towards the top side of the map, it is Scout and Meiko who now get a bit more control of this bottom side. Dragon's up there, but Jiejie actually made his second back while Tarzan's doing the scuttle. So for now, it is a slower early game, but maybe we expect something around the first or second dragon around these neutrals. Or at least see if Tarzan can punish any of these waves. Again, when we see a Jayce in the top side, kind of expect that Meiko will try and set up the wave. I know you've talked about this quite a lot, Clement, where getting the top laner low into a position to potentially be dove. But of course, with a Sion who has level 6, that can be quite hard, unless Meiko keeps getting some of these favorable trades.
And we do have to be cognizant of the Unsealed Spellbook here. That means at level 6, there is a chance for something like Exhaust or Ignite to just come out.
They're the ones ganking, though. Yeah, Meiko in a bit of trouble. Flandre has his ult. He's already used it, but Onslaught of Shadows comes in first. Now it's Ragnarok time as Flandre flashes away. The Undertow Axe is on the ground, trying to 1v2. Tarzan set it up, but Scout in to help. Turns out for a better trade, and it turns in favor of EDG.
That was spot on from EDG. I love the timing right there, just using the level 6 summoner advantage. Meiko has been pushed up this entire time. They go in, they do get the first blood, but a really good attempt by Tarzan as well. He gets one back for the team, and just looking at the summoner situation, Meiko still has his flash up, so he should be able to continue this pressure onto the bot lane as we have the trade coming in.
Yeah, Dredge Line won't mean too much, but something else we got to consider with this bottom lane, even when Viper gets level 6, you got to remember that Nautilus against Xayah just feels so good, right? You can auto to force out the ulti. You press E, you get slows with the Riptide. Depth Charge we mentioned as well. Probably the one thing that you want to be using the Featherstorm for. But then you also talk about the Fate's Call coming through, right? The slow on Rend to follow up, and there are just so many tools to deal with Xayah, so always a threat here that Viper's going to have to pay respect to. As you can see, already losing out in CS, getting pushed against the turret. Will actually be the bottom lane that resets first. And Clement, look at the first back. Normally it's Berserker's Greave. That's just such a big item for the Kalista. But Light has gone straight into the plated steel caps going against this comp, which, yeah, there's some AD damage, but most AD you're going to get is out of Viper.
Yeah, this is an I win lane sort of composition that they're going for. There's no assassins anywhere to be found. It's pretty much just Light saying that my whole purpose in life.
Clement,
okay.
Meiko's just killed Flandre. That's a solo kill.
Pretty unexpected for Flandre right there. Just falling down to that play. Got super low underneath the tower, and this is actually quite huge as our Tarzan also picks up the Herald.
That's going to escalate, right? With Jayce getting the solo kill, Meiko just blasts Flandre down. He has teleport. He'll be able to push out the wave, though, and deny some experience, deny some CS. Jiejie's doing the dragon, but Light wants to contest, comes in with the Q, but the rend will not be enough. So that is the trade-off for EDG, but you have to remember what it means for Jayce in the top lane and what LNG wanted to play towards.
Yeah, it's an absolutely huge kill right here. He also has the cull, so he's much further ahead than you would suspect from his itemization. And with the Herald threat right here, EDG have to play towards both sides of the map. They have to be cognizant that this top lane could just be going down, and bot lane is always a threat because we see Icon constantly leaving lane at this point, and we do have Tarzan already well past level 6. So bot lane wave is already pushing out, and I think this is where preferably LNG would want to strike.
But can I come back to the point? Can I come back to plated steel caps and how we've actually rarely seen this? Is it worth just denying the 1 AD threat on the side of Light, or would you rather see the Berserker Greaves in this situation when you are the Kalista trying to threaten the lane advantage?
Well, I think Light is just saying that, hey, I'm playing purely for lane. This is going to be a very low DPS Kalista most of the time.
Okay.
We will take a look at the top lane kill right here. I don't think it was particularly special. Just Flandre just trying to stay for the cannon minion and getting destroyed. So, yep, pretty easy pickup on that side. And the trade-off obviously is you survive a lot longer. You can stack up those spears for a longer period, and it also makes you a bit better against Hecarim. So
and now
those
we're
are your
doing
upsides.
It again. I mean, Meiko is just going to keep on doing this. Remember, waiting for the Shock Blast combo to come through. It's just a small one, but Flandre bullied out again. He didn't use the teleport before, but Tarzan has the Herald, and Meiko's just set up for success in this solo lane.
Yeah, very strong trading coming out from the top side, and Hecarim has to come bottom just to make sure that LNG, when this wave is pushed up, that they aren't immediately dove on. So this is pretty smart strategy from LNG. Yeah. They are dropping the Herald in the top side while knowing that the jungler probably has to defend in the bottom as well. If LNG just play defensively for this Herald, then nothing will happen to them.
You get first turret blood onto the Jayce, and now for the bottom lane, EDG actually making the dive. There's the Fate's Call, but down goes Light. Lwandy stuck in the middle of 4 people now. The scout goes through. That's the dredge line completely whiffing. As to bring the play back, Icon's here, but unfortunately it's way too late, and that's EDG's trade. When they're the team that looks for the scaling, you're getting something on the board at the very least.
I guess plated steel cap still doesn't save you against the hooves of Hecarim.
That's true.
I thought he would last a little bit longer than that, but that full burst combo was pretty disgusting coming in. Also, Scout teleporting down to make sure that play was as clean as possible. And I felt like LNG would have been able to back off a little, and I really want to commend the angle that Jiejie approached at. LNG actually had full warding position on the back end of their tower, so they were looking at the potential engage from the left side. Jiejie says, no, I'm actually going to just charge at you directly through the lane, and I think that's what caught LNG off. They did their due diligence, they warded on the left side, but the pony just went directly at them.
Yeah, sets up for Scout to get a bit of kills under his belt. Remember, he got the one up in the top lane before, adds another one, so it feels pretty good as fake flash used from Icon. They'll hit Meiko with the trouble bubble that Lwandy not willing to commit. Icon will go over the wall and get a small burst trade, and that's something, but Meiko will be able to heal this up, so take note of the game at this point. LNG, they got the first turret in the top side, but because of that trade in bottom, gold, not even 1,000 here for LNG's early game. And EDG maintaining some kind of distance here. And we have to watch how Scout progresses forward, because with those 2 kills, there should be an early Mythic, despite getting the tier and going to the side of Last Whisper as well. Oh, excuse me, the Lost Chapter as well. As Troll Bubble not going to connect, Ignite drop down, and Scout will just have to walk this one out.
Yeah, nothing much for them to do here. It does look like it's just going to be a Liandry's Anguish coming out on Scout's side. Of course, a bit of sustained damage and extra burn for Poke War coming in. And in the meantime, LNG really need to get this comp going. This is not a great start to a Poke comp that has to win early game. Kalista is one of your lowest DPS characters when it comes to the post 30-minute mark. Her on-hit kill reset function does not work in teamfights. It's almost purely a laning ability that you have with the Rend. So it's a little unfortunate, but LNG, if they lose their bottom lane, Light almost does nothing, because this is not a team where you actually want to engage on the opponent either. So
Yeah.
I think they really need to find a play into the bottom side, potentially a tower dive, and just make sure that ends up on the right side of this matchup against Viper. They have to have this bottom lane win and actually need this bottom lane to push, or else it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, got to be relevant, right? Got to actually do something to the front line of EDG this early into the game. But still sitting on the Noon Quiver, why Essence Reaver and Viper going into his second item is a very big reality, excuse me. But I was just looking at Scout there. His damage is insane, and the Shockwave in this fight could be so impactful. His teleport's being burnt. They want to get Viper and Meiko. Lights going forward. Halo Blades gets a slowdown, but Lwandy, as they turn that corner, can't hit the dredge line. As Icon comes back down, note that the CC landing is how they set up. But for EDG, they're looking to match.
I love the ideas from LNG, just really sad that the execution wasn't there necessarily to land the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Again, targeting bot lane is exactly what this composition is made for. Everfrost goes down, doesn't find the root either, and EDG have a perfect response right here. I love what they're doing. They're just pushing out the mid lane and saying, we can go for the Herald. We don't mind if you go for the Drake. Let's just make sure you do not get to play early aggression and do not find to get snowball opportunities.
They don't walk into the palm of their hands, but Viper might be in a bit of trouble. He used heal. I think that was to help Meiko, who also burned the ultimate, and suddenly EDG will have to give up the bottom lane turret, or at least some pressure thereof, while Scout's up in the top lane. Clement, I also want to point out that we do see an Everfrost you mentioned on the Zoe. An Icon, you know, just kind of showing us that this item is great on pretty much everyone in the mid lane right now.
Honestly, if you were playing for early game and you want a snowball, Everfrost is your best item. We've been talking about the biggest change to Everfrost was that item combination cost. It's now down to 450 gold compared to 1200 and 1250 on Luden's Tempest and Liandry's Anguish, which is absolutely massive. In the mid game, against people that are going for the same item path, you get a lot of time where you have that just free extra HP, free extra ability haste, and with it you can catch people across the map. Of course, in this situation, it matters a little bit less because of how accelerated Scout actually was, so you're not actually going to get the item advantage. But, you know, the other buffs on Everfrost were actually quite nice as well. You get a little bit more AP ratio, you get a much faster cast time, so you can catch people out earlier, and with a combination of 4 buffs, expect to see this item actually come out on a roam-centric Zoe.
I like that it's not as janky anymore, right? Less time to react for the enemy. You mentioned the cast time. The biggest thing about Everfrost for me, always that cast time that came through, it was so predictable. It was very easy for people to see it coming, but now a bit more speed in it. You mentioned the changes and how nice it feels to transition into it. But Everfrost picked up after the Liandry's Anguish, and Scout's still in a great position. And, you know, there's no Dragon available, but LNG positioning around the river first, just looking to give Tarzan that scuttle as he maintains a 1-level lead, as we kind of expected, right? But the problem is LNG still only about 1,000 ahead at 17 minutes into the game, and Light not in the greatest position with Lwandy, as Viper still farming it out. Lwandy sends out the dredge line, but some really good spacing set up here by EDG's bottom lane.
And it's a great job for Viper here as he constantly keeps this bottom wave completely pushed out. He has the Essence Reaver, no mana issues whatsoever. He's just spamming abilities on the wave to make sure that Zoe can't come here, and Meiko might find himself in a bit of trouble.
The squad's here, gonna run rampant into him against the wall, knocked up. Meiko sent packing as Jiejie's ulti saved until he flashes over the wall, sent into Flandre's loving arms, and EDG striking fast.
Oh, that was painful to walk through your own jungle like that. Double turbo chem tank at this point. No chance for Meiko, even burns his flash. And I really love how EDG are maintaining this defensive posture. It's really cool to see that they've been warding out a potential 4v2 into the bot lane for so many different rotations now. LNG has been poking their heads into the bot side jungle 3 times over like the last 5 minutes, but they never got the roam to get going. And once again, we're going to see this play from Meiko's angle. He's trying to make sure this red buff goes back to his own team, and EDG were waiting for him, just lying there in wait, getting the trap going, nothing they could do, and this just means another minute passes where LNG are not finding the leads.
The lead keeps shrinking as well. I mean, EDG either making responses or making the better play, and we just got to remember that it's almost 2-item territory for EDG at this point in the game. Jiejie also was able to pick up the Rift Herald. Like, denying that from a composition that wants to get rolling is massive, even if it is the second Herald. And we're fast approaching 20 minutes into the game. Baron will start coming up and start looking teams dead in the face. We're onto third Dragon territory as well. And now with the Herald placed down, it feels like EDG is... We're just kind of... We've fallen asleep. Observer, there we go. Flandre is just going to ult out as well as Herald. Will it get the charge? Yes, it will. But it will not take the turret down.
I wonder what happened there to Flandre. We didn't get to see the start of it. No ultimates actually burned on LNG, but they still get the ult from Sion. And now we are going after the Drake fight. EDG feels strong enough to actually contest this one. They finally have both of their frontline mythic items done, and all they need to do is actually to hold on to the ramps here. They can body block well enough. They should be okay. While Flandre probably goes a little bit too far forward in this one.
Doesn't matter though, it takes pretty much no damage unless you get the burst from Icon and Meiko comboed. Looking towards Light as well, Clement. Where is he? Where's Kalista? You can see in the bottom lane. Light's there pushing out the wave, while EDG have grouped around the mid lane. 20 seconds till the dragon spawns, and LNG's poke landing into Meiko. That's good. Getting Scout's Banshee's Veil, even better. And Flandre's going to run into Tarzan, but still the Sion, level 13. Shield absorbing quite a lot. And remember, you have the command protect too, so double shield available, while EDG now gearing up for the objective to spawn.
Yep, and it's actually super easy for EDG to play this one out as they're going in right for Light.
There you go, Onslaught of Shadows, decimating strike. The Kalista left alone. 4 versus 5. A Scout has to flash over the wall. A Summoner for a kill. Definitely in favor of EDG, as LNG must pay the respect now.
EDG don't really care about this mid lane tower anyway. It's only there to be taken by the poke composition, and they will stop the Drake stacking from LNG. So very strong find by them, and just judging by the way EDG was so confident in this team fight, they know LNG's time is up. I honestly only gave LNG 15 minutes with this composition. I don't think there's much to say if you're sitting at 15 minutes with no lead.
And unless it's snowballed out of control, right? Like, you give them more time depending on how the early game goes. But, you know, 15 minute the window to actually get it rolling. And then if it doesn't, you're like, well, gold's even. We're 22 minutes in. And this is the second time tonight, Clement, we've been like, we know what happens from here for the game. We don't want to, you know, add spoilers. But let's be quite honest. EDG in this position, looking favored to win, being in such a great position. And this is what we're kind of talking about, right? LNG versus EDG. We wanted to see, you know, LNG bring the tempo. We wanted to see LNG kind of skill check EDG. So far, that hasn't been the case with players like Light, like Tarzan, even Icon on this Zoe.
No, that bot lane play was just absolutely massive from EDG. They make sure they always have the wave clear potential, and Flandre here actually with the Moggies. Kind of an interesting buy. We haven't seen this item in a very, very long time. I wonder if he's actually at 3k HP already.
Will be actually close. I like that he called it the Moggies. Very cute. His Icon's actually caught out. Everfrost will not get the stun, and there's the trample. Shockwave for effect. And yeah, this game feels like it could be done, Mr. Chu.
I would definitely say so myself. It's just kind of tragic. We will see these sort of drafts a lot of times when top teams face bottom teams. And Tarzan has to get out.
You know, Tarzan, his Ragnarok's there, hasn't burnt it. Hysterics Gauge now available, shields him up, but EDG just pushing him off so Viper can attack the turret. And, you know, meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Flandre's still alive and kicking. And the Warmog's doing quite a lot of work for him. Maybe not, as Meiko's going to solo kill him yet again, but Zombie Sion running after him. Look at this. Sped up. Give him the kill. Scout took it away, but at the end of the day, that's a 1-for-1 trade after Scout teleports down. The inner turret also went down. EDG have a 2k gold lead, Clement, as that's a good dodge from Viper and Meiko after trading Light.
Oh, you can see the desperation in LNG. They're trying so hard to get anything going. But Viper has actually been playing super defensive. This is a really good laning phase coming out from Viper and Meiko. This is a lane that you're not expected to win. There's a lot of pressure coming from mid-jungle, but they've always just constantly wave cleared, been able to dance away, and we're going to watch how Icon actually fell down in that trade as we had our eyes on the bottom lane during that one. Pretty simple play coming in here. Not Beishan, sorry. Jiejie just coming in from the side. Same Hecarim, yeah, pretty much. And in the meantime, Meiko having that Eclipse, doing a good bit of damage. I love the Thundering Blow to interrupt Decimating Smash. That's exactly how you would want to play the trade. So it's good play on Mikuya's part, and he does get the teleport, so at least something going back into his way. Question really is it too little too late?
Might be, right? At this point, it feels like EDG still in the commanding position. Meiko getting pulled in, but it doesn't matter. Lwandy has to flash over the wall. Viper narrowly missing away from the Everfrost, and again, LNG looking for a play, but they can't source it and still falling behind. Mikuya, meanwhile, though, soloing a turret, which is good. But LNG going to need more than that. So gold goes on to the Jayce, who's almost 3 items.
Right now, the only thing we're waiting for is for EDG to smash LNG with their combo. I want to see the most disgusting Pony Express you could possibly show. Just go into the back line, make sure you tag out light. It's so easy to actually execute. And you also have onslaught of Unstoppable Onslaught coming out from Sion. Yep. So these are 2 trains that are going to run into LNG. And there's absolutely nothing they can do, honestly. Like, I'm just waiting for EDG to kind of group, LNG to show up and say, okay, let's put a bit of poke damage onto them, and then EDG to run them over.
Dude, Scout has them at Jayce. It's 11 stacks. Like, that's very telling of how this game's gone. And this is the one thing when we're seeing these volatile comps, when you just don't get ahead, it's like, well, the rest of the game's so telling. 25 minutes in, and next Dragon's coming up 30 seconds. There's the Shockwave, onslaught of Shadows, onto one target, onto Icon. Meanwhile, Flandre's in the middle taking no damage. Jiejie the same. Meiko with the engage. The flash burp, but the decimating strike still connects. And Lwandy, as he tries to escape, they just turn their attention to Mikuya. Jiejie comes flying in. The horse, of course, is the best course of action. And EDG again just showing us that game 1 is as over as it gets.
It really is. Oh, man. I'm not sure why LNG drafted themselves such a risky composition. Like, LNG, the way that they have drafted in the past is for priority bot lane. That's a huge part about their identity. They want to siege and roam across the map. So I sort of understand the Kalista pick, but I'm not sure the poke composition actually works well with it. So they gave themselves no outs. They didn't get really much value out of this bottom lane. And honestly, we're just waiting for game 2 at this point. This is a talk about anything you want. How's your day been? What's your family doing? What do you think about the patch? What's the weather like? This is sort of discussions we're going to be having.
I don't know what your first dates are like, Clement, but small talk, no. That's when you know you're not going past the first date. Small talk is the worst thing in existence. You ask, are you looking for kids? You know, how old do you want to be when you get married? Are your parents, are they nice? Are they going to like me? What do they think of the beard? And that's how you get down to the nitty gritty. And I know our chat can't talk right now, but I'm sure they're enjoying the hell out of this at 27 minutes, just watching EDG trample over LNG. A Jiejie go next in all chat, really. That's what you should be putting down right now. And 10-3, the scoreboard doesn't lie. As EDG come back and it's going to be pushing this inner turret. Look at LNG. The range is Icon and Mikuya. Mikuya's not here. He's in the mid lane. EDG just taking the turret meanwhile.
Yeah, I wonder what Mikuya's plan is as you see the train smash right into his beautiful face and Jayce dies instantly.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we go to game 2, we got to remember that EDG showed a lot of control in this first game for the comp we have. And look, honestly, you know, hold your loved ones tight. You know, LNG, as they showed us, it can all be dropped within an instant as Flandre into the back line. Meanwhile, the Fate's call to save the support, but everyone's still on in. The trample for Meiko, the shockwave onto 2 members, and forward goes Jiejie. Goodbye, LNG. They're already dead. You know, the Simpsons meme really comes to life here in this game 1.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a team composition with more bold letters like foregone conclusion written on them than this LNG composition.
Sure.
This is absolutely zero comeback for them. EDG can play this however they want to. And I do want to put a bit of a recap on how EDG got here. I felt like they did a couple things really smart. They did not contest the first Drake, and they actually stole away the first. They did not contest the second Drake, and they got the first one for themselves off of a ganking kill. Just making sure LNG never got their chances to snowball when their composition was actually strong. A great bot lane gank, and just looking at this team fight, LNG don't have enough damage. The front line from EDG is massive at this point. It's triple tank items already on Sion and triple tank items on Jiejie too. So Kalista with steel, with defensive boots, it's just not going to cut it. It's not going to do anything. And LNG at this point, pretty much waiting for Miracle Seal and Icon to claw themselves back. But just a reminder, Icon doesn't have the best damage items either.
No, man. I mean, you know, you talk about the Everfrost. It's that earlier spike, but we're not early anymore. And I want to point out, in comparison, Scout has 25 stacks of Jayce. Like,
Let's
this is
go.
a 4-item Orianna. And
we need to see his AP. This is going to be juicy.
It's 537. So we are in a late game territory for Scout as 30 minutes rolls around. Mikuya's trying to trade, but look at this. EDG's bottom lane, like, yep, it's broken. And LNG are like, stop, please. Give us something. As there goes
Scout
the inhibitor.
Is already level 17, so that's an 800 damage shockwave at the very least if it lands.
You know, there's the Fate's call. Tarzan trying to survive. Teleport coming in to save the minion. Flandre's going to tank up. The shield is absorbing. The turret does no damage. And he has Warbox. Frank the tank engine is actually just going to be charging through the bases. Inhibitor number 2 going to go down next. I wanted to start the engage, but I'm glad that didn't hit. As Baron buff going to be utilized. Scout does have the TP, though, to rejoin the fight. There's the engage onto Lwandy. He's dead again. And here we go. EDG going to end it here, ladies and gentlemen. 31 minutes in. The tank engine flies through. The children's cartoon becomes less innocent as Flandre sets this up for Scout to get a kill. The burst damage insane. And this was over about 15 minutes ago, but it's a clinical end as game 1 looks so damn easy. Challenger versus Gold comes to life in the LPL for this first game of the series.
LNG, they aren't part of your bottom 5 squad. They're a team that are still within striking distance of playoffs. But this game really showed you the difference between a top team and sort of a middle of the pack team. EDG, with all the correct macro moves in the early game, they don't take fights when they don't need to. They draft a very standard front to back composition. And LNG were kind of left to pull out all the tricks. They were doing all the risky plays, the steel-plated steel caps in the bottom lane, trying to win the bot side, and going for these hyper engages onto the Drake. And it just seemed way too risky. This is really just a one-punch composition that has to get going early. I actually think LNG are a decent enough team that they can fight EDG on their own terms. They don't have to go out of their way and try to extend themselves to go for these hyper red deck wins. Like, this is one of the most extreme, like, basically if you're playing like Legends of Runeterra, it's like if you don't draw a 1-drop or 2-drop in turn 1 or turn 2 and you're just dead. That's the sort of composition that they went for, and unfortunately for them, it was way too risky for it to pan out.
I can tell that you've been playing a lot of Runeterra, Clement. I can definitely tell. But you're right, you know, it all fell flat and then they had no outs. And a deck with no outs is immediately you surrender, right? And you go next, you try and rush again. So EDG had control all game long. It's kind of sad. And at this point, I know on our screen, we're just seeing a flurry of images like from the Chinese broadcast. So I believe Jiejie was MVP after that game as well, Clement, which is well-deserved. Honestly, you could have given it to anyone of EDG at the end of that. And I know our English broadcast is looking at something a little bit different. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting mixed images here. But Jiejie MVP, I mentioned before, is great on this Hecarim. And tonight, I think this is the second or third MVP that Hecarim's got.
Hecarim is the go-to pick of the patch. I think we can all agree on this one. Jiejie's first 2 ganks were super crucial. He basically broke open Mikuya's lane, made sure that Jayce didn't go out of control. He timed it up really well with the Ignite coming down for Unseal Spellbook on Flandre. And then the bottom lane gank was huge as well. The bottom lane gank was LNG purposely pulling the wave, trying to get them to overextend and then follow up. They warded out the entire left side, and Jiejie just went straight down the lane. He just went through the door, got the kill onto Kalista, and that was GG for Kalista. If Kalista loses lane, she's actually just worthless. There's nothing you do on that champion. I mean,
against the Sion, right? Like, Kalista's not a great tank buster, you know. Rend is a one.
You don't build Blade of the Rune King on her anymore either,
That's
so
right.
it's just not much you can do.
Right, you know, it's really hard to look at a Kalista fail in game when the laning phase was so even as well. And, you know, before we go to a break, got to remember that for LNG, this is a really important win. They need to find a win here because against EDG, they're not safe to get into playoffs. They're a team that is sitting with IG. If they lose this series, they'll be 6-6 as well with a worse game differential. They've actually got a negative game differential, even though they've got a positive win rate in series, which is just crazy. It just shows you how many game threes LNG has gone to and how their spot is still being threatened in the league.
Yeah, I want to see LNG try to fight late game because I actually think this is where EDG is the weakest. EDG has not shown great teamfight performances in their recent series against strong teams, and LNG, they do have Light, who is more known as a hyper late game carry. I think Tarzan is also more known for scaling up a little bit as well. He's not the jungler with the most early game action in the LPL by a long shot. So what I want to see out of LNG is draft your Gnar. You know, Mikuya's great on that champion. Give Light the Tristana. I'm not sure if it was banned away this time around, but give him that Tristana, give him the hyper carry, and just hold out the early game while trying to get a better advantage in the late game team fights.